only ran 64 to 66. It's just a 2-season show, right?
Before it became a television legend, it was nothing more than a bizarre experiment. 3 dead cars stitched together into one impossible machine. The Munster Koach, built for the 1964 sitcom The Munsters, wasn't just transportation. It was a Gothic miracle. Half hot rod, half hearse, and entirely insane. Designed by George Barris and his crew, this monstrous creation rolled out of the garage like something straight from Dr. Frankenstein's fever dream. But how did this family-friendly horror comedy end up with one of the most hauntingly beautiful cars in TV history? Why did Fred Gwynne, the towering actor who played Herman Munster, have to literally sit on the floor to drive it? And what dark secret hides beneath its shimmering black pearl paint? Today we're not just admiring a TV prop, we're digging up a legend, so buckle up. Because we're about to open the coffin and uncover 20 weird facts that prove Herman's Munster Koach was far stranger than the monsters who rode it. Number 20, Frankenstein's Garage. The story of the Munster Koach begins not in a design studio, but in what looked like Frankenstein's garage. George Barris didn't start with a blank canvas. He started with 3 corpses, 3 separate Ford Model T bodies from the 1920s. Each one was stripped, chopped, and sacrificed for a different section of the car. The front came from one, the middle from another, and the rear from the third. Welders and fabricators worked like mad scientists, fusing these disjointed relics into a single 18-foot monster. The smell of burning metal filled the air as sparks rained down like lightning from a storm. When the final weld cooled, something impossible stood in the middle of the shop. A vehicle that looked both alive and dead. 3 cars had to die so that one legend could live. That right there was the moment the Munster Koach was born, a resurrection of twisted steel and Gothic imagination. Number 19, the hand-built frame. If the body was stitched together like Frankenstein's monster, the skeleton beneath was pure craftsmanship. The Koach's chassis was built entirely by hand. No factory jig, no computer design, just rulers, chalk, and nerve. Stretching 133 inches, it was longer than a modern sedan's entire wheelbase. Each beam had to be measured, cut, and welded with absolute precision. Too short, the body wouldn't fit. Too long, the steering geometry would collapse. Barris's crew called it building a bridge that had to move. And that's exactly what it was. A steel bridge on wheels strong enough to carry Herman Munster himself. 6'5" in platform boots, plus a family of monsters and several hundred pounds of Gothic ironwork. It creaked, groaned, and flexed under stress, but never broke. In a world before CAD or laser levels, this hand-forged frame was an engineering miracle held together by nothing but skill, sweat, and a little madness. Number 18, 18 feet of madness. When the finished Koach finally rolled out of Barris Customs, it stretched a full 18 feet long, longer than a modern pickup and heavier than anyone expected. Parking it on the Universal Studios lot was like docking a ship. Corners had to be planned, not taken. Cameramen struggled to fit the entire vehicle into frame. City streets on backlot sets had to be widened. Even simple 3-point turns became 6-point dances of terror. Fred Gwynne joked that parallel parking the Koach should count as an Olympic sport, yet that absurd length gave the car its majestic hearse-like silhouette. When it crept across the screen, the camera didn't follow the car commanded the camera. It wasn't practical, but it was unforgettable, and that was exactly the point. Number 17, blood red interior. Television audiences saw a black and white show, but inside the Koach, color bled everywhere. Literally. The interior was upholstered in deep blood red velvet, chosen to photograph as a rich, shadowy gray on camera. Under studio lights, it shimmered like dried wine in darkness. That decision was pure genius. It gave the car an air of forbidden luxury, a vampire's parlor on wheels. Crew members who opened the doors on set were stunned. From the outside, a funeral. From the inside, a feast of crimson. The fabric wasn't cheap theater velvet, it was automotive grade material designed to survive heat, sweat, and endless retakes. Decades later, restorers struggled to find a perfect match. Some said no modern dye could capture that same shade of monster red. Number 16, the black pearl paint. They called it black, but it wasn't just black. The Koach wore a coat of black pearl, a custom mix containing real mica that shimmered between midnight and deep violet, depending on the light. In 1964, that kind of finish was almost witchcraft. Painters laid down multiple base coats, then the pearl layer, then clear protection, each one drying under heat lamps for hours. One mistake meant sanding everything back to bare metal. There were no computerized spray booths, only steady hands and obsession. Under sunlight, it glowed glowed purple. Under studio lamps, it gleamed like oil on water. The result was hypnotic, a surface that looked alive, as if the car itself were breathing under its own dark skin. Number 15, 500 hours of iron art. Beauty takes time, but the Munster Koach demanded obsession. The ornate Gothic scrollwork curling around its body wasn't molded or stamped, it was forged by hand. More than 500 hours went into bending, twisting, and welding those iron vines that climbed across the car like skeletal roots. Each curve was shaped with a hammer and torch, one spark at a time. The artisans weren't just fabricating decoration, they were sculpting armor. The scrolls didn't only look elegant, they hid the scars where 3 Model T bodies had been joined. Each swirl covered a weld line, turning necessity into art. Look closely, and you'll see that no two pieces are identical. Every loop, every twist carries a fingerprint of the craftsman who made it. Barris's shop was known for speed, but this time they slowed down for beauty. 500 hours for a car built for a sitcom. That's not design, that's devotion. Number 14, the Lanterns of Death. Instead of modern headlights, the Koach glared through a pair of brass carriage lanterns, the kind once used on 19th century hearses. They actually worked, but barely. The dim yellow light added nothing for driving, but everything for atmosphere. The horns, too, belonged to another century. Twin air trumpets powered by compressed air. When Herman honked, it didn't beep, it bellowed. Crew members joked it could wake the dead on the Universal backlot. These design choices weren't mistakes, they were statements. The car wasn't meant to look modern, it was meant to look eternal, a relic that could have rolled straight out of a Victorian graveyard. Number 13, the Tombstone Radiator. Front and center sat one of the strangest design choices in TV car history. A radiator shaped like a tombstone. Forged from polished brass, it didn't hide beneath a grill. It was the grill. Heat shimmered off it like breath from a grave. The prop crew had to polish it constantly. Brass tarnishes fast under heat. Some days, assistants spent hours rubbing it with cloth just to keep the headstone gleaming on camera. The design wasn't just for shock. It tied the whole Gothic language together. Even in silhouette, that arched top gave the Koach its instantly recognizable face. It was branding before branding existed, a rolling gravestone announcing the death of normality. Number 12, Hot Rod Heart. Underneath all the Gothic theater beat the heart of a real hot rod. The front end used a dropped axle, split radius rods, and transverse leaf springs. Pure 1950s drag strip engineering. The stance said speed, even if the show never let it race. That setup made the Koach stiff, twitchy, and loud, exactly what Barris wanted. It wasn't supposed to glide, it was supposed to growl. When Fred Gwynne hit the ignition, the car leapt like a chained beast. Viewers might have laughed at the family, but any gearhead watching knew this hearse could run. Number 11, Herman on the floor. Here's the image no one saw on TV. Herman Munster, 6'5" and wrapped in foam rubber, sitting flat on the floorboards to drive. The costume made normal seating impossible. His platform boots hit the pedals, his knees jammed against the dash, and he could barely see out the windshield, so the crew cheated. In most shots, Fred Gwynne didn't drive at all. The car was towed or pushed off camera while he pretended at the wheel. When he did have to move it himself, everyone cleared the set. Imagine a giant in Frankenstein makeup piloting an 18-foot hearse half blind. That wasn't acting, that was danger. It's a miracle no one got crushed on the Universal lot. Number 10, the Lone Survivor. Most Hollywood cars have backups, stunt doubles waiting in case something goes wrong. The Munster Koach had none. Only one original was ever built, a single fragile masterpiece that had to survive 2 TV seasons and a feature film. That meant no crashes, no risky shots, no mistakes. Every movement was planned with surgical precision. When the Koach rolled onto set, it wasn't just another prop, it was treated like a celebrity. Crew members polished it between takes, guarded it at night, and prayed nothing would happen to it. If the car broke down, production stopped. If it crashed, the show was over. Barris once joked that the Koach got better treatment than most actors, and he wasn't wrong. Number 9, the 1984 Resurrection. 2 decades after the show ended, the Munster Koach rose from the grave once more. In 1984, legendary builder Dick Dean was authorized to recreate it for car shows and parades. Without digital scans or 3D models, Dean had to measure every inch of the original by hand, sketching blueprints from photographs and instinct. The second Koach wasn't a cheap copy, it was sturdier, designed to handle real roads and long-distance travel. Fans seeing it roar down Main Street could hardly believe their eyes. Ironically, the recreation creation caused confusion for decades. Some fans thought there were always two cars. Others swore the 1984 version was the original. Both were authentic, one from the 60s, one from memory. Number 8. The Museum Tomb. Today, the original coach rests in its eternal garage, the Volo Auto Museum in Illinois. It's displayed under soft lighting like a sacred relic, surrounded by other Hollywood icons, yet it always steals the spotlight. Visitors say it looks far bigger in person, almost supernatural in scale. Every few months, technicians start the Ford engine just to keep it alive. The growl that echoes through the hall isn't just mechanical, it's historical. Children cover their ears while adults smile with nostalgia. The museum treats it like fine art, polished, protected, and preserved. In a way, it's found peace. After decades haunting Hollywood, the monster has finally been put to rest. Number 7. The $18,000 monster. In 1964, building the Munster Koach cost a jaw-dropping $18,000, 4 times the price of a brand new Corvette. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $160,000 today. For a sitcom prop, it was outrageous, but the producers knew what they were buying. The Koach wasn't just transportation, it was a character, a star that demanded close-ups. It never asked for a raise, never forgot its lines, and never broke character. For Barris, the cost wasn't wasteful, it was an investment in immortality. 60 years later, that car still commands headlines and museum halls. Try putting a price tag on that. Number 6. Toys, models, and legacy. Even after the show ended, the Koach refused to die. From AMT model kits to die-cast replicas, lunchboxes, and Christmas ornaments, it became one of the most merchandised TV cars in history. Collectors still hunt for sealed 1960s AMT kits, some fetching hundreds of dollars. Modern replicas recreate every curve, down to the red velvet seats and the tombstone grille. Children who've never seen the Munsters still fall in love with that bizarre silhouette. The Koach transcended its show. It stopped being just a car. It became a symbol of weirdness done right, proof that even the strangest ideas can outlive their creators. Number 5. Tom Daniel's Lost Design. Before the Koach ever hit the road, it began as a sketch by designer Tom Daniel, who imagined something far wilder than what made it to screen. His early drawings included a gleaming supercharger bursting through the hood, a dramatic hood scoop, and sleek disc-style headlights. Daniel's version was a dragster from hell, a fusion of muscle and menace. But when George Barris took over, the producers wanted less speed demon and more Gothic nightmare. The exposed engine and chrome flare were cut, replaced with the long hearse-style body we know today. Yet Daniel's fingerprints never vanished. The aggressive rake, the racing stance, the feeling that the car might leap forward at any second. All of that survived. The final Koach was a perfect compromise between two madmen's visions, one chasing speed, the other chasing the macabre. Number 4. Racing stance. Even standing still, the Munster Koach looked like it wanted to race. With massive rear slicks and skinny front tires, it wore the signature dragster stance of Southern California hot rods. The wide rear tires weren't just for looks, they were functional. The Koach was heavy, weighed down by ironwork and props, and it needed traction to move at all. The narrow front tires cut rolling resistance, creating that classic forward-leaning attitude. This setup also made it photogenic. Every camera angle emphasized motion, aggression, and power. Even parked, the car looked like it was charging out of a cloud of smoke. Number 3. The missing skull. Ask any fan to picture the Munster Koach, and they'll mention the skull radiator cap, a grinning ornament staring straight at you. But here's the twist. It wasn't there in the original. The first TV car had a plain brass cap. The skull was added decades later during restoration, likely in the 1970s or 80s, when car shows craved extra shock value. Over time, it became so iconic that even model kits include it now. It's a fascinating case of myth overtaking truth. The skull never appeared on screen in the original series. Yet today, it's inseparable from the legend. A detail born from restoration became part of history itself. Number 2. The costume curse. Filming with Herman Munster inside the Koach was chaos. The foam rubber costume, shoulder pads, and high boots turned every entrance and exit into choreography. Assistants had to help Fred Gwynne squeeze in, duck, and twist without tearing the suit. Each driving scene was rebuilt differently. Seats removed, pedals extended, steering wheel repositioned just to accommodate the monster's body. Every time you see Herman casually slide behind the wheel, remember, that moment probably took hours of setup and several crew members holding their breath. Hollywood magic often hides discomfort, and in this case, claustrophobia. Number 1. Lily's deadly birthday gift. According to the Munsters lore, the coach wasn't bought, it was gifted. In the story, Lily Munster, Herman's devoted wife, decided to surprise him on his birthday by fusing two cars together, a hot rod roadster and a 1920s hearse. It's the most fitting backstory imaginable. The car is literally a marriage of death and speed, beauty and horror, just like the Munster family itself. But when you think about it, the logic is insane. How did Lily order such a thing? What kind of custom shop agrees to blend a hearse and a dragster in a weekend? That absurdity is exactly what made the Munsters timeless. The coach wasn't meant to make sense, it was meant to make history. Before we uncover the final truth, take a moment to appreciate what we've just driven through. A ride built from death, art, and madness. If you've enjoyed this journey into Hollywood's weirdest garage, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments which fact about the Munster Koach shocked you the most. Because the strangest secret isn't mechanical, it's human. Behind all the welded steel and Gothic flair stood a handful of craftsmen who believed that a TV car could be more than a prop. They built it not for fame, but for fun, for the sheer joy of creating something no one else would dare attempt. George Barris called it a car that should never have existed. Yet its very existence is what makes it unforgettable. The Munster Koach is a time capsule of 1960s imagination. Part monster, part masterpiece. All legend. Decades later, while modern vehicles fade into obsolescence, this bizarre hybrid still commands respect. It's been copied, worshipped, and immortalized, proving that the line between madness and genius is sometimes drawn in chrome. In the end, the Munster Koach wasn't built to live forever, but somehow it did, because legends, especially the weird ones, never die.